I think we can start the session now. Hello and very good evening, everyone. I'm Ashal Dua, Senior Consultant with EBC Learning. On behalf of EBC Learning, I welcome you all to this workshop on data protection laws, understanding legal and practical dimensions. And today we have with us Mr. Gajendra Maheshwari. Gajendra, very warm welcome to you to EBC Learning, and you will be our guest speaker for today. And before we start, let me just give you a quick tour of EBC Learning of our website. What all courses do we offer and how can we help you enriching your legal education? I'll just, share my screen with you all and I'll just take you to EBC Learning for a quick tour. So just hold on for one sec. So I'm here. So with EBC Learning, so these are the courses we have. We have self-paced courses which are 41 in number. We have talks which are 12, and we have contract law essentials modules. We have various modules on contract law. We have corporate law essentials, which is done by our in-house faculty, Dr. Pratima Narayan, and corporate law essentials, which is again we various modules on corporate law modules. One which is being authored by our own director Abhinandan Malik, and we have also we have corporate law module 1, which I'm going to play for you some glimpse of how we do our corporate mediation also, and also we have merger course on mergers and acquisitions, RERA essential, arbitration step by step. So basically 50 courses we have on the platform right now, and this one is my favorite course on Consumer Protection Act 2019 by Dr. Pratima Narayan. Again, a very interesting course, so you can take that too also. And also we have filing and insolvency petition, which is again done by Dr. Charu Mathur. She is advocate on record, handling of check bounce cases, insolvency essentials. We have various modules on insolvency essentials here. Um, Also, we have the webinars and the talks, but before that, I would just like you to have a look at one of our recent courses on corporate law module 1, which has been done by Dr. Charu Mathur. So do have a look. was Dr. Charu Mathur. I'll just stop sharing my screen now, and I'll just take you through like how do we actually plan our courses. So we do offer both skill-based and foundational courses, which are very much rigorous. We assure that the learner has an in-depth knowledge too. So you should check them out. So 2 modules of corporate law is already being launched. What's coming up is 3 more modules on corporate law, including the learning on shares, debentures, and winding up. Well, we do offer these courses on library on demand, and they are self-paced and instructive. Check them out. So our main objective is to provide you both academic and skill-based training. And this webinar is part of our series of webinars, which we have been doing very frequently. Now, coming to the topic here. So 2020 was the year in which the world went more digital than ever before, all owing to the pandemic. It has altered all our lives. But one of the silver linings here was the spotlight on the importance of data and data flow. That's what we discussing today, the most relevant topic in today's times. So in this webinar, we'll understand the 3 important aspects: need and advantages of data protection law, introduction to the 90, compliance challenges that businesses may face, and how we can tackle them. So I'll be moderating the session. Also, I would like to inform you all that there will be a Q&A session of the webinar. You can write your questions in the chat box. And if the time permits, we will make it more interactive. You can unmute yourself and ask the question to our guest speaker, Mr. Gajendra Maheshwari, yourself. And now let me just give a brief introduction of our guest speaker, Mr. Gajendra Maheshwari, to you all. Gajendra is a managing director of the law firm. In the past 3 years, he has been involved in advising on data privacy laws applicable in India and abroad. Recently, he assisted a large multinational organization in implementing a global privacy program covering protection laws applicable in EU, GDPR, USA, CCPA, India, and 10 other countries. He regularly manages projects and renders advisory involving global data privacy laws. Previously, in a prestigious World Bank project, he worked towards the introduction of indirect tax reforms in as a speaker of faculty on the Gajendra Maheshwari. Great to have you, Gajendra, here.
Thank you. Thank you, Achal, for having me here.
To EBC Learning. Without any further delay, I'll just hand it over to you.
Thank you so much for organizing this webinar and also for a very kind introduction. So friends, as you know, today's topic is data protection and privacy, which is one of the most emerging sort of subjects for out of curiosity, out of learning, out of practice for my fellow professionals. So we are going to talk about, give you a brief overview about how the law is emerging, what it entails, and how can those who want to shape up their practice area in this area of practice, how can you do it? We'll also talk about that towards the end. Now, I was going through the EBC Learning website. It is very resourceful. And I wish to have this kind of course on data privacy as well soon listed on the website for benefit of several users. We have also got Abhinandan with us. So yeah, thanks Abhinandan to you as well for organizing this webinar on a very sort of burning important issue. While I'm talking, I'll share my screen and let me have this presentation up and running. I hope it's visible to all. Okay, I guess it's visible to everybody. So as we have around 1 hour of time today, as per the schedule, including the Q&A. So we are going to talk about this topic in 3 different phases. In the first of all, in the beginning, we are going to talk about how it impacts individual rights. So we'll start the relevance from the individual's point of view. Then we will see what are the key provisions under the Personal Data Protection Bill, which is already before the Parliament, and we hope that it is going to be enacted soon. That's the second part. And third, the discussion will be incomplete if we don't see it from business point of view, from other stakeholder, very critical stakeholder, the people who will be obliged, who will be regulated, from their point of view, how it is going to impact them. And as I said, we are also going to talk about the career opportunities in this area for students, for fellow professionals who have joined today. So to begin with, we are going to start, as I said, from the individual's perspective, how this law is emerging, why it is relevant. As a person, how am I impacted? So let's start from this, and then we'll be able to better understand the purpose of the law. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play a video to set the context right. And let me stop sharing this screen, and I'll go to the video screen. Okay, I've got it on the YouTube. All right, here we go. This is the video. It is in German, but you will get subtitles. And of course, the dialogues are not that relevant. The visuals are more important.
Dag Fien. Dus kun je gewoon. School tegen Antwerpen.
Ja,
Insecten.
dat blieft?
Ik voel 2 insecten op je rug. Kan dat?
Ja, vlinders.
Slovenie?
Hoi.
Een moto. Oranje.
Pas erop.
Zenit.
Oui, bien.
Je hebt een vriendin. Julie de. Een boeiend liefdesleven. 3, 4 zelfs.
De vierde, daar zwijg ik meestal over, dus dat weten niet veel mensen.
Hoe is het met je spierscheur? Maison rouge, balkon blanc. Ja. Ik zie geld, ik zie transacties. Maar kent je je rekeningnummer van buiten? Ik denk dat ik het wel weet. Die staat wel negatief op je bankrekening.
Ja?
97. Last month, you spent €200 on alcohol. Vorige maand €300 aan kleding gespendeerd. 8.
Ja.
5. Voor een huis dat van eigenaar gaat veranderen. €795.000.
Ja, maar eigenlijk.
41.
Ja.
Is dat juist?
Ja, dat is juist. Oh my god. Oh nee. Ah, dat is, ik weet niet hoe eng.
Okay. So we come back to the presentation. So I hope what I'm trying to say, in this digital world, let's move on to the next slide. This is all what we share every day, each one of us on a day-to-day basis, each minute one can say. This is our personal data. And you know, all of this is completely unique to yourself, your name, your phone numbers, your email ID. These are all we say as the personal data or the personal information. Your government IDs, your biometrics, which is like 100% unique. Nobody else can copy or have the same biometric details. And on a real-time basis, we share our location. How many of us do care to turn the location off and check every app now and then, which is tracking my location, my address, my family details, which includes my parents' details. And you will find so many, questions which are there on the websites. If you forget your password, then they typically ask you, what is your mother's maiden name or your middle name, etc., etc. Then credit card, debit card number. Okay, we have all spoiled by convenience these days. So every time I insert my credit card number, information will pop up that you want to save it for future use. And just for the sake of convenience, I may say tick the box and find ease next time, because I will not like to insert the detail one more time. And do you know how many times, how many sites we have already done this kind of information sharing? Financial data. So if your chartered accountant asks you that please give me your Aadhaar card or your last year's return, easily you will be able to share it on your on WhatsApp or any other messenger or on email. Okay, health data, sort of devices that we use these days, everything which is pertaining to my health, what are my body parameters, lab reports, everything is also in some form available digitally. Okay, and also my passwords, which are very important, because nowadays we all experience that so many apps, so many services that we use, all of them might have different sort of password requirements, and it's physically, at least for me, it's impossible to remember. So I have to note it down. I have to use online resources like Keychain, etc., to save my passwords. So this is all. I can keep counting. There are variety of personal data. This is what normally we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And here we are the applications, are the services where we share this personal data every now and then. On social media, of course, we all know that on Facebook, on Insta, etc., we share all of this personal detail, not just personal detail, but our liking, disliking, our thoughts, our viewpoints, etc. Messengers like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, every now and then Telegram we use for different sort of communications with each other. Emails, I keep sharing details on my email. I have to, let's say, share my password with somebody. I'll frequently attach it on my email and share with somebody. All these details we keep on cloud for entertainment site, e-commerce platform. Several apps which are downloaded on my phone have got access to all such details, even web portals. Now, it's very common for services, even for, let's say, access to Zoom, where we are hosting this webinar. It may ask for my phone number, my email ID, at least my email ID, and my name, my picture also I may choose to upload. And when I'm attending this webinar, imagine the data points which are created. It will indicate the topic. And if I'm attending, then at least Zoom will come to know what are my interests, what am I asking, what am I deliberating. All of this information is also accessed by the platform. And we don't know where are their servers located. While you might be hearing me sitting in the next door, but as the technology works, this data packet, this data packet must be coming to you from different locations. It might also be possible that one data packet is reaching you while servers located in, let's say, somewhere in Latin America, somewhere in China, somewhere else in any corner of the world. Everything is assembled, and then you get the data in the form of 0, 1 in the digital form on your system where you are accessing this kind of webinar. Similarly, your internet service provider, not just your application, but your internet service provider. And we are very persuaded to join free internet every now and then at the airport, at cafes, at malls, all those free internets that we keep joining. They also get access to this data because it's the platform, it's the pipeline through which the data is moving, and anybody who is organizing that pipeline may have access to the data. Similarly, Internet of Things. I was reading in the morning about Internet of Things, a paper. Now, the way it is expanding, even smart cities, government is also planning to completely digitize each and every services. For example, let's say if an ambulance is moving, then there are plans that all the red lights will be synchronized in order to create the way for ambulance. That's how the technology is going to become. And we can keep talking about Internet of Things. This is one thing, where we can have a long webinar. My car, which has got internet inside, or my wearable device, my refrigerator, if the level of milk goes down, soon we'll find refrigerators in our homes. It will order milk automatically. Your security cameras, offices, workplaces, public places, houses have so many security cameras, and you can access the video, the feed, sitting anywhere in the world. Now, who is having the server? Where is it hosted? How the data is flowing to you? Is it secured, not secured? Is it possible for somebody to get access to your home camera? We don't have complete answer to these questions. So what I mean to say is that there is a lot of personal data, and voluntarily or involuntarily, we keep sharing by choice or no choice. We keep sharing with different service providers, different platforms. I'm not even talking about the government platforms or other services. For example, in Gurgaon, I know if you enter into DLF building, they'll ask you to show your ID in order to give the access. So I'll show my driving license. It has got all my details, particulars, date of birth, address, my kind of parent detail, etc. So all of this is like a very common thing that we all do. Now, this is what is apparent to us, although we may be seeing it for the first time altogether, but this is what is apparent to us. Now, on top of it, let's also look at the technology point of view from the technology perspective. Now, this is what I voluntarily share. And this is what through technology, my service provider or the app provider, they can access from me. And this is what is not something which is known to me, but still all of this is happening today. So my IP address tracking, each of my device through which I access internet, there is unique IP address, we know that. Now, several websites are capable of doing this IP address tracking. And when you go through the website, they can track that these all websites you have visited. Your internet fingerprinting, footprinting is very much visible. Cookies, nowadays, whenever we go and access websites, particularly which are hosted or owned by EU-based businesses, they ask that whether you accept all the cookies. How many of us have really gone into and read the context and relevance of each and every cookie? Because if you go and see, there are some cookies who can track each and every movement of yourself on the internet. Each and every keystroke that you punch, this is also possible to track. Your location, your entire web history can be tracked through these cookies. But we normally don't take care to kill all the cookies that are stored in our system, or to remove or to deselect cookies which are not in use. So this is the technology used to track more data out of your system. Location tracking, cross-device tracking. Now I use tab, I use laptop, I use phone, but I have one Netflix account. So if I access my Netflix account through all these three devices, then Netflix will come to know that these three devices are belonging to me, and they can create a profile. Okay. Similarly, device fingerprinting, and I keep talking about the technology. The object is not here. What I wanted to really emphasize is that on account of the more internet usage, on account of the technological vast development, this is inevitable. We cannot stop all of this from happening. The only way, if you want to stop this, is there are TED Talks which people say that you have to go and live a hermit life in a jungle in order to stop all of this sharing which is happening. Okay, so this is the magnitude of the problem, if we can say, name it as a problem, because we don't have a choice. This is the magnitude of sharing of personal data which is happening. So this is the factual thing. Okay, now what happens as a result of this? So how this can be used? Why will somebody collect all of this information? Let's also look at that. So three broad reasons why my personal data is collected and how it can be deployed. One is profiling. All right. Profiling means that basis this data, somebody can assess what are your financial capabilities. Okay. What are your interests in people, goods, services? You can be profiled that these are set of people who you are more interested in. This is the type of goods you want to buy. These are the type of services you want to avail. This is your health condition. You are in good health, bad health. What kind of health facility you will need after 5 years, 10 years, all of this is possible. If somebody puts an analysis to your health data, your religion, your political preferences, okay, somebody can easily ascertain by the way you comment, you like, you dislike, you tweet. All of this can be used to infer your political preferences, whether you are committed towards party A, party B, or you are sort of a fence sitter. Okay, the sexual orientation, all of this can be done easily. Now, if I tell you, you may say that why profiling is not bad. Now, if I tell you that, okay, on a one-to-one basis, you share with me all your details. You tell me what is your financial capacity, who you are interested in, who you are, what are your likes, dislikes about goods, services, people. You will not share with me all these personal details. But at the same time, you are sharing some factual points, some data points on the basis of which it is inferred. Now that's the problem, because I am divulging more than I really want to divulge. And there are people who know all these things about me. Now you can say that, okay, they may know all of this, then what's the harm? The thing is that this data has got a value. Okay, even if you, let's say, access a free service, it's not free, because the service provider is more interested in getting your data, in getting your interest, so that you can be profiled and you can be targeted. And who are these people? Let's look at that, how it can be monetized. So first of all, the data collector, the primary person who has collected this data, can monetize. And let me tell you, as lawyers, we study a lot of business models. There was a client of us some time ago. The business was getting sold and the valuation was carried out. The major value was derived basis the data that they hold instead of the business model, because the purchaser said business model is so common, I can create the business model. It's not a big thing, it's not a rocket science, but it is the data that you hold that is more important for me, because the company was typically in the position, in the business of supplying a software to all societies, whereby they can keep a track of who is coming, who is leaving, and visitors' phone number, who they are meeting, whether the house is owned or it is leased. If it is leased to whom, how much is the electricity consumption. So all of that data became the basis for the valuation of the whole business. Every day nowadays, you see an advertisement between football matches, cricket matches. If you pay your credit card bill through a certain app, then you will get rewarded. Now, it is very surprising that I have to just pay my credit card bill to my bank using this app. So if the bill is for 10,000 rupees, I'm paying 10,000 rupees. In that process, I'm getting rewarded. Why? Why it is so? Because it is the data which is important. In order to pay you money, to facilitate you with some points and gifts, the company gets hold of the credit card statement, and your credit card statement will tell the company, the receiver of that information, that where do you spend, how do you spend, what are your likings, disliking in terms of financial spending, etc., which is very important to pass it on to different people who are interested more in this data. So there are these data collectors, data processors, and also hackers. The company which you have shared the data might be interested in part A of the data, but we always keep hearing about data hacking. 2 recent incidents happened in India. All of us might have ordered, who are present here, might have ordered Domino's, yeah, and Domino's data was hacked, and the hacker got a lot of information about who ordered, what ordered, some financial details, credit card number, addresses, etc., etc. Another important data breach that happened recently was with respect to Air India. Most of us must have traveled through Air India, okay, and by virtue of that, we must have done online check-in. So my phone number, my email address, my financial records through which I have done the payment, if I am part of their membership, then more details are available with them. All of that got hacked, and the hackers, they demanded ransom in case of Domino's, that you pay us this amount of money, then we will return the data to you. So that's the value of the data. So beyond hackers, there are organized businesses like data brokers who collect data from all these sources. Okay, there are a lot of startups we got to know a few days ago. If they bust, then also there are these data brokers who are interested in buying their business model, buying the data from them. So even a busted e-commerce business, a startup, can have a lot of value, because of the data that it has collected. So it is collected in a very organized manner by data brokers, and it is then shared to large data aggregators, lead generators, influencing agencies, those who can influence your decision by targeted material, content supply, and cyber criminals as well. if you talk about cyber criminals, let me give example of Gurgaon, the city where I live. You know that only in Gurgaon, there is this dedicated cyber security police station where you can lodge all such complaints. On a daily basis, only in Gurgaon, they receive more than 40 complaints a day of cyber crimes. Now, this is how the data is manipulated. What we are trying to say here is that once you create data, you share data, then the data becomes out of your control. Okay? Then it can be used for target content delivery. Now, it's not simple advertisement, which is as per your liking. You may not have any problem with them, but there are a lot of things beyond that. Through the data, these things can be organized. Target advertisement is a very simple thing. Suppose I Google, hotels in Northeast India. I want to go to Cherrapunji in Meghalaya. I Google hotels, and tomorrow I'll see the ad about hotels in Cherrapunji or flight tickets to Meghalaya, Assam, etc., etc. So that's only one part of it through target advertisement. What also can be done through this data is influencing decisions. Your political decision, your other thought process can be influenced because the relevant content which can be shown to you is only towards a particular motive, and then you will slowly and gradually, move towards that. That's how the influencing happens. And we have heard about Cambridge Analytica sharing data, having data from the Facebook and influencing the US election, the previous US election. Okay, so this is what is being done today. Financial frauds, I already talked about, quantum of frauds in the country, and 40 cases are reported. Imagine how many cases which are not reported just in Gurgaon, and extrapolate it to the entire country. Cyber crimes, warfare, fake data, all of this is happening because of the data that is being shared, that is being analyzed, that is being sold all together. Now, let's, in a very structured manner, let's also look at this second video that we have for today. I'll share this video. This is one from the ICO. Okay, ICO is the regulator in the UK for data privacy. So this is one created by them. Very interesting to show how data is monetized. Come back. This shows the whole life cycle of the data in some parameters. Okay, of course, not the criminal cyber warfare that we talked about. So the issue is, so this is the problem statement. And now the issue is, let's put this question to ourselves, these set of questions to ourselves. What is my personal data used for? Do we know that? Is the personal data getting collected more than required? Now, what is the tendency of the collectors? Please keep collecting the data. Okay, you will use it now or later. But while sharing the data, do we ask ourselves whether it's needed, not needed, etc.? For example, I go to restaurants, they ask me for my date of birth, for my marriage anniversary, and all sort of other details, whether they need it for serving the food, or really will I get a promotion? Is it not disproportionate? Shall we ask this question to ourselves? Is my personal data being shared with third party without my knowledge? Because we don't know. Once we shared the data, we don't know what is going to happen with that data. The person who has collected, how is going to treat that data? How can I access my personal data and make corrections as and when required? The data which is collected about me might be wrong, might be manipulated data if the data possessor has got it from some other source. Now, how do I ensure that the data which is stored is correct or not? Is my consent being taken whenever my personal data is used for various reasons? Is my online behavior being tracked? Am I being profiled? We don't have answer to these questions. Can I ask the data collector to erase my personal data? Interestingly, a few weeks ago, there was an important judgment, not judgment, but an order passed by Honorable Delhi High Court, where a person approached. He was trying to seek admission in US college. And there was a previous kind of criminal proceeding initiated against this person was appearing in the Google search. Okay. And he was absolved from all of those proceedings. But still, on account of that search result, he was denied the admission. So he approached the Delhi High Court and filed a petition seeking relief against Google and also other law portals, saying that this search result should not appear now because I have already suffered everything. So can I ask the data collector today to erase my personal data? This right I don't have today as such in a meaningful manner. So that's the reason why we have been debating about the data protection laws in the country, and it has evolved to a certain extent, but there are a lot of things to be done yet. So let's look at the progress around the data protection law regime in the country so far. We're going to talk about the key aspects here, and then we'll enter into the second part of our discussion, which is the Personal Data Protection Bill. So we know the problem statement already. Then in light of this, we are going to evaluate, understand the provisions under the bill so that we get better relevance, better understanding of the provision. That was the whole idea of making the problem statement in the beginning of the webinar. We already have Information Technology Act 2000. It provided provisions on confidentiality, privacy, security for information stored in a computer, and compensation for failure to protect data. But there is no aspect here on restriction to collect data. It is only focusing today on the manner of storing data. That this is the data, if you store, you have to, if you collect, then you have to store it in a proper manner. And there is a breach. If there is a breach, then the compensation is provided for. Then information technology, reasonable security practices and procedure, and sensitive personal data and information rules define what is the personal data and specified more details and requirements about storing such data. Then very important, this judgment came into force. Justice K.T. Puttasamy versus Union of India, what we call as the privacy judgment. In 2017, Honorable Supreme Court delivered this judgment. Most of us are aware about it. And in this judgment, with the unanimous view, Supreme Court said that the right of privacy is also inbuilt under the right of life under Article 21. So the Article 21 was interpreted in the manner that the court said right of privacy is also one of the fundamental rights. A very important milestone in the journey of data protection in India came through this judgment of Honorable Supreme Court. So this is a fundamental right, which is right of privacy. But within right of privacy, there are different sort of privacies. And in the today's webinar, we are talking about the data privacy. the data protection and privacy as such, for which the law is going to be created. Then the report of committee of experts under the chairmanship of Justice P.N. Sri Krishna was formed, and the committee presented a report, which we can also say it's a white paper to the data protection law in the country, which laid the path of how the data protection law should be. And the first version of the law, of course, was created in 2018, but now we have a revised version in the form of Personal Data Protection Bill 2019, which is pending before the Parliament. It is in fact pending before the Joint Parliamentary Committee for deliberation. We are anticipating that the committee, JPC, Joint Parliamentary Committee, will present its report to the Parliament soon. And by monsoon session or latest by winter session this year, this bill will see light of the day and will be converted into an act. It will be a paradigm kind of development in terms of data privacy in the country. This bill is, for those who want to know more, is primarily based on the European law, which we call as General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, which is applicable in Europe. It came into force in May 2018. Now, from this point, let's understand the Personal Data Protection Bill. It's a vast law, okay? It has got several aspects embedded in it, but for the sake of understanding, we have divided it into 7 parts, and we'll see quickly all of these aspects one by one. Okay, these are the 7 aspects which we are going to deliberate on today. So there are 3 pillars. If you want to understand the crux of this law, the DNA of this law, then understand these 3 aspects first. What are these 3 aspects? Data, data principle, data fiduciary. Let's call them 3 pillars of the data protection law, data protection bill. Okay. So what is data? It is defined as personal data, data about or relating to natural person. Okay, not the artificial jurisdictional person, LLPs, companies, private limited, public limited companies. Those are all out of the ambit of this bill. Only the personal data related to individuals, natural person, who is directly or indirectly identifiable. Very important. Person should be identifiable. Only publishing phone number is meaningless. You associate phone number with the individual, then it becomes the personal data for the purpose of this bill, which is regulated. That's the kind of data which is regulated. Should be identifiable. It should be attributable, linked to the person to whom the data belongs to. It should not be anonymized data where the fields are hidden and you cannot relate or you cannot identify the individual with respect to the data. So that's the personal data which is defined under the law. And then there is yet another category of data which is called sensitive personal data. It may relate to financial, biometric, general data, health data, etc. And the law says that this set of data may be transferred outside India. Okay, it is permissible, but such data should continue to be stored in India. So the copy of that data, okay, should also be kept in India if it is this type of data, which we call as sensitive personal data. Yet another category is critical personal data. Now, what is critical personal data? Not so far defined under the law. Under the regulations, under the rules, the government will define what is critical personal data. But the rule related to critical personal data is that it can only be processed in India. So if it is a critical personal data, it cannot be transferred outside India. And the law lays down heavy penalties if critical personal data is transferred by somebody outside India. We'll see that as well. Okay, so that's all about data, first pillar. Then data principle, the owner of this data. So we as an individual who are the owner of this data, okay, defined to be natural person to whom the personal data relates. And the law grants various rights to the data principle, thereby making the individual owner of his or her personal data. If I can summarize the entire law in one line, then this is the line. This law is going to make the individual real owner of their personal data. Today, as we have seen, after generating data, after sharing data, we as individuals, we lose control, okay? And it becomes, the data comes in the hand of other collectors. But under the law, once it is enacted, individual will become owner of their data. We'll see how in what form they will become the real owners of their data. Then comes data fiduciary. He's the person who collects the data, and the law uses the word fiduciary. Who is a fiduciary? We know that, let's say, directors are fiduciary of a company. Fiduciary means that somebody acting as a trustee in form of a trust. So the person who collects data, the law uses the word fiduciary. He is holding the data as a trust of the person to whom this data belongs to. It means any person, including a state, company, any juristic entity or individual who alone or in conjunction with other determines the purpose and meanings of processing of data. There are other aspects related to fiduciary. Data processor is the person to whom fiduciary shares the data for further processing. Okay. For example, there is a company, e-commerce company, that collects the data, but it has to give it to somebody else for the purpose of auditing, for the purpose of arranging, analyzing the data. So that other company is the data processor. So law also puts an obligation on the processors who get hold of this data through data fiduciaries. And significant data fiduciary. These are critical persons to be notified. For example, notified social media intermediary companies, Twitter, Google of this world, having high users. And there are going to be special provision related to special data fiduciary. So that's all about data fiduciary. So what we are trying to understand here is that there is this data which is governed, personal data, and definition of data principle and fiduciary. And what we are going to see now is how the individual is made owner of his personal data. First, before that, let's look at the applicability on what kind of data this law is going to apply to. It is going to apply to all Indian processors, meaning government, Indian company, even individual citizens, whosoever is located in India and getting hold of the personal data. So anybody who is physically located in India will be governed by this law if that person processes personal data. Then it is data centering, personal data of Indians. So the law says if personal data of Indian is collected in India, in the territory of India, then wherever the data goes, okay, the law will travel with the data. So in any corner of the world, if the data collected in India is processed, let's say it is processed in Philippines, let's say some of this is processed in California, then even the company located abroad will be subjected to this law. So this has got extraterritorial implications insofar as it pertains to data, personal data of Indians collected in India, and also foreign processors. So Indian processors in the first box row you can see, then we have foreign processors. Foreign processors are also subject to this law if they collect and process data of Indians with reference to their business, which is in India, or they do profiling of Indian citizens, Indians, for whom they have got the personal data. So this is the scope and ambit of the law. And as we have seen, it is not just confined to India. Even if there is a foreign processor, then obligations are on that processor to comply with the Indian law. They may require to take registration and be obliged with the Indian regulator. The same is the mirror copy of the European law, GDPR. If in India, let's say there is a BPO processing data of the European citizen, then because it's personal data of the European citizens, then the company processing data is required to be, even today, compliant of the law applicable in the EU. It has to be compliant with GDPR law. So there are these exemptions also, power of central government to exempt somebody under following circumstances. Indian data processor processing data of overseas data principle. Pure BPO who are processing data of foreigners, they may apply and seek exemption. It is not an automatic exemption. They will have to apply to the regulator, which is going to be created under the law, and they might be exempted. Certain government agencies for matters concerning security law, processing data for research, archiving or statistical purposes, exemption on personal data by natural person for purely personal domestic purpose. So I have some help in my house and I collect Aadhaar card. So there are these minor personal uses which are going to be exempt. For journalistic press purposes, in connection with legal matter proceeding, there is exemption. Data can be shared even though consent is not obtained. And there is also an exemption to small entities because these laws are going to be cumbersome. There is going to be cost of compliances for small businesses. So the government is going to lay down specific dispensations for small entities. Now, what is a small entity? They are going to define in the regulations when the law is enacted. The quantum of the data to be processed, the kind of entity, depending on the turnover, all of that is going to come under the rules which will be framed after the law is enacted. However, under the law, yes, there is a provision to give dispensation to small entities. And there is sandbox for encouraging innovation for research purposes. It's the technical aspect of it. Now, let's see limitations on collection. Okay, personal data shall be collected only to the extent necessary for processing such data. This is the mandate under the law. Only to the extent it is necessary, you will collect the data. No more than that. Now, this is the principle. It is very subjective. Right of equality should be there. The principle is there, but it is subjective. So it depends on the case-to-case basis, what is excessive, what is not excessive. Okay. Then there are these two aspects which are the backbone of this law: notice and consent. So the law says that before collecting a data, you will tell the data principal that this is what I am collecting and take consent. And consent may vary depending on the data to be collected. Let's look at these things in detail. Giving notice. Purpose for which personal data is to be processed. You have to define very clearly that this is what I am going to collect and this is what I am going to process. Nature and category of personal data being collected. You have to give prior information. Automatic collection may not be possible. We have seen through technological advancement, a lot of extra data may be collected. Okay, that may not be permissible once the law sees the light of the day. Identity and contact detail of data fiduciary and the DPO. So data fiduciary and the DPO, the data protection officer, people have to appoint, and their identity and contact details have to be shared with the data principal, that in case he has got some grievance, then he can contact this person. Right of the data principal to withdraw his consent. So it will mean that once consent is given, later on, the choice should be there with the data principal to withdraw that consent. Okay, today I'm sharing my data and I'm allowing you to do this kind of processing to sell it to somebody. But tomorrow, if I don't want this, then I should be able to show you red flag. And when I show you this red flag, you will not share the data with anybody else. Basis of processing, consequences of the failure to provide such personal data, sources of collection, where it is not collected from data principal, because data brokers we talked about, data aggregators. If somebody gets hold of data through these kind of persons, then also they have to inform the data principal from where they have collected. And parties to whom such data would be shared, cross-border transfer, if they are doing, not doing, all of that has to be informed. Notice has to be given to the data principal. That's what the law mandates. Period for its personal data shall be retained. A clear retention policy depending on each and every data should be indicated. And normally these things are communicated through privacy policies. Today, what people do, they copy and paste privacy policies. If you go to a web designer, they'll copy paste privacy policy without getting into marriage of what kind of data being collected. Whatever we have discussed today, these are not adhered to. These are not even kept in mind. But after the law comes into force, all of these aspects will become important. Existence of right to file complaint has to be informed. Manner of grievance redressal. Obtaining consent, very important. Essentials of consent. The data principals should be able to give free consent, should be informed, specific, clear, capable of being withdrawn. It's like Contract Act, offer acceptance, notice and consent. I am going to collect data for this purpose and I have to obtain consent. Today, as we have seen and experienced, this aspect is missing. Additional requirement for critical personal data, consent should be explicit, not buried in privacy notices, privacy policy. One has to give explicit consent. Yes, this is the critical data I allow to you to process and share in this manner. Provision of any goods services not to be made conditional. This is very important. Today, we all have seen in case of phones, etc. We agree to the condition. Now, the law says that provision of any goods or service not to be conditional on providing consent. a person should be able to withdraw his consent or limit his consent. That is what the law is trying to say. Burden of proving that the consent was given is on data fiduciary. Okay, we can understand this. Concept of consent manager introduced. Now today we have problem in giving consent to different sites. So the law is very far-fetching. I mean, very forward-thinking, not even far-fetching. It says that there will be a portal, sort of NSDL, what we have today for insurance. I can give preferences over there, and I link all the websites applications to that preference so that I don't have to select on each and every case, on each and every instance. The concept of consent manager is very unique to Indian law. It is present in the Act. We'll see how it gets implemented. Let's look at limitation. I am also side by side keeping eye on the timing. We'll quickly wrap up these 7 steps and then we will take up questions and answers. Limitations on data processing. Okay, no personal data to be processed except for a specific, clear, and lawful purpose. Again, that's the mandate. Only for a specific purpose for which you have collected clearly and lawful purposes. After you have obtained the consent, you can process. Not any other processing will be allowed. Purpose limitation should be processed only for the purpose for which it is collected in a fair and reasonable manner. You can see these are all principles which are inbuilt in the law. Now, if there is any grievance, if there is any breach of these principles, one will have redressal. For redressal, one can go to the collector who has collected the data, the data fiduciary, or else may also file complaint to the regulator. That also is provided under the law. Now, in the today's context, currently, because this law is not there, and we know that right of privacy is there. Now, how many people can go and practically file a writ petition for redressal of any of these rights? These rights are not there in the crystal manner. We have right of privacy. That is also one principle. But the law, what it's going to do is going to make it more, clear, more crystallized form of right is going to be provided once the law is enacted. Quality of data process should be complete, accurate, not misleading and updated. A special restriction on processing of personal data of children, which is very critical. So there are going to be special restrictions. It may require consent by the parents, and age of the children will also be defined under the law or the rules. A specified biometric data, people will not be allowed to collect. We know case of Chaos a few months ago, they started deploying the face recognition technology, meaning they started collecting biometric data. So these kind of technological deployment may not be allowed once the law is enacted. Okay. Personal data by entity other than data fiduciaries, such as presence of written contract, limitation, third-party processor, all of this has to be formalized. So you can imagine what kind of process streamlining will be required once we are closer to the enactment. And rights of data principle, 4 important rights are going to be granted apart from the rights that we have seen in the form of notice and consent. Right of confirmation and access regarding status of data process, whether you have processed, not processed, I will be able to get the status on this. This right is given. Right of correction if the data is wrong. Right of erasure, you remove the data. Because let's say I access movies on Netflix. To put it into perspective, I might have removed the watch history, but still the watch history is accessible to Netflix. How do I remove that? So the right will be available to me later on upon enactment of the law. I can go to Netflix and say that please erase all the data which you have pertaining to me as a user. Right of portability. I've taken insurance from company A. Now I want to move to company B. So I'll have right to portability to direct company A to transfer my personal data, whatever they have collected, processed, etc., to company B. So this kind of right of portability is also going to be available, and right to be forgotten, as we have already discussed. There are these good practices, very technological. I'll not go into detail, but there are these principles to be adopted by designing privacy, designing business processes in the manner that it serves the best interest of privacy law. Privacy by design, all business processes should be designed in such manner that it caters to the privacy. Excuse me. Transparency in processing of personal data. Security safeguards, very important. There are security parameters to be laid down. We expect for businesses that the kind of data they collect, it should be properly secured. And very important, clear obligations are going to be there on businesses to report data breach. Now, today, data breach might be happening every now and then, but we don't come to know about them. Later on, when the law is enacted, it will be mandatory for all organizations who have collected data to report data breach to the authority within certain period of time. So that is yet another development which is going to be there. Let's finally look at the penalties and offenses. I've given you a clue that they are very rigorous. Let's look at the actual quantum of penalty. For small sort of offenses, it is 2% of the worldwide turnover or 5 crores, whichever is higher. Okay, for small offenses. For bigger offenses, like, for example, sharing critical data outside India, etc., it is 15 crore or 4% of the worldwide turnover. So let's say if you talk about significant data fiduciaries like Instagram, etc., if there is any significant breach, then penalty can be 4% of their global turnover, not just turnover from India, global turnover, or 15 crores, whichever is higher, which is very, very stringent. And there are a lot of these instances. We keep a track on a weekly basis, where particularly in EU, a lot of penalties are imposed on several businesses for breaching the provisions under the EU law, which is like very akin to Indian law, is in fact influenced by the EU law, GDPR we are talking about. And in addition to penalties, there can be offenses. This completes the bill part of discussion. Quickly, we'll see how it is going to impact the business. So basically, if we talk, let's talk it in a summary manner. I'll stop sharing here, okay, in the interest of time. If we talk about businesses, okay, there are a lot of things that businesses will need to do. It will help them in a way. Okay, first of all, there will be cost of compliance. There is no denial of this fact, okay? And it is going to be cumbersome for businesses, very frankly, to deploy this law in a significant manner. Even in the EU, where this law has been in place, it was mandatory for businesses to be compliant with this law in May 18. But still, we see a lot of businesses who are not prepared and starting this process from scratch, okay? So you can expect this if you see this in Europe, you can expect what is going to happen in India. But the good part is that once this law is enacted, it is going to provide, as of now, it says 18 months to business to prepare itself, to adopt the requirements under the law, to become compliant under the law, which is a good, significant time frame. But it is only a matter of time, let me tell everybody, that this will become, it is not whether, the question is not whether, the question is only when it will get implemented. So it's only a matter of time. Now, what is important is that right from today, a real business, if you want to really grow, you have to adopt these practices. Because if there is a data breach, let's say, first of all, it's a big reputation risk to the business itself. Okay, it's a business risk, high business risk. Then there are financial consequences because data may fall in hands of a competitor or wrongdoers who may misuse this data in different ways. So it's also a financial risk. And we see a lot of ransom being demanded from the companies where data breach sort of incidents, kind of this thing happens. So it's also a financial risk, not just the reputation risk, but also a financial risk. And it's also an operation risk because your competitors, they may scrap data and misuse this data. They may get hold of your customers. So what we say for businesses, okay, we have seen from individuals' point of view, this is going to come, but for businesses, it is an enabler. That's what we always say in our webinars, that it's an enabler. You have to have compliances, you have to have your processes streamlined in accordance with this law, and that's the better sustainable way of growing in this digital age. That is what is important for business. Okay. Finally, few words on people who want to augment their skills in this field, which is quite emerging. There are courses available, a lot of talks, webinars you can do. EU-based courses are available, and soon we will see a lot of courses also emerging in India around this topic. There is a pioneer agency, a Data Security Council of India. It's a NASSCOM body which does the certification sort of thing one can opt for it in order to become the certified data privacy professional, which is very reputed thing in India as of now. In order to prepare for that, you can attend these sort of webinars, keep reading, keep learning. It's not structured as such, but as I said, we expect a lot of courses to come in order to create more awareness, share more learning with people who are interested in this topic. Certainly, this law is going to come and it will keep evolving, because technology is very volatile. It keeps moving. So the law will always try to catch hold of the technology. Okay. And there'll be interpretations issues, there will be application issues, deployment issues, where several sort of professionals will have to equip themselves in order to cater to the needs. That's what finally I wanted to say. Sorry for taking more time, but now we have round for Q&A. Over to you, Achal. How would you like to
There are a few
take
questions.
it forward?
Yeah. Thank you, Vijender, for the wonderful session here. There are a few questions in the chat box. Would you like to take that up? Can you see the chat box, please?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a question from SKR Prasanna. The question is, what is holding to pass PDP bill in the parliament? How much more time will it take? US and many other regions have moved swiftly. Okay, yeah, so this is a very important bill. As I pointed out, right now it's pending before the Joint Parliamentary Committee for its comments. We are hopeful that this bill will be passed soon. Even from the opposition, there has been a demand to pass this bill. In the absence of this bill, also the government has recently, we have seen they banned a lot of Chinese companies. And the reason was that it is violating the right of privacy. So under the administrative power, let's say under the IT Act, government has done this thing, we have seen, but we need a framework desperately. It's not an easy task. If yes, in EU, this has been already in place since long, but in US, still they have not passed the federal level of bill. Okay, several states have passed their own version. For example, California has got California Consumer Protection Act, which is only applicable to the residents of California, but it's only very state specific as of now. So US is also going to take time. As I said, the question is not whether, it is going to come, and we hope that it will be there within this year. That's what we are anticipating. By this year, we will have this law enacted, hopefully. Next is again from, sorry, Shraddha, hi, please go ahead.
Yes, sir, I have two questions. First one is there any all India level exam, like we have the patent agent exam or the AIB for practicing as a lawyer? So for data protection lawyer, is there any exam or will there be any in the future? That's my first question.
Okay.
And so secondly, second question is, as you have explained today, the information that is gathered by the data processors that can be used for any lawful purpose. But in case I give my consent and they take my data, and after processing they abuse that consent, so what kind of a remedy shall I have, or how can I track them or their activities?
These are very relevant questions. I'll answer them one by one. Your first question is about the certification. So there is an organization called Data Security Council of India, DSCI. It is NASSCOM body, and they do certification for privacy professionals. They have certification for IT professionals, which is like IT driven thing, and also for professionals like lawyers, chartered accountants, company secretaries, etc. Like us, like myself, to be more precise. You can opt for it. You can visit their website and you can enroll yourself, and you have to clear the exam. You have to score 60% in order to clear this certification and add a certified data privacy professional. as your qualification. That is one thing. Okay. Now the next is that yes, consent for lawful processing is relevant, but all of this we talked about is going to be implemented once the law is enacted. As of now, if there is a breach, you don't have right, and that's precisely the reason why we desperately need this law, in order to make you the owner of your data, in order to give remote control in your hand, which is now in somebody else's hand so far as it pertains to your data. Okay. Once the law is enacted and you find that there is unlawful processing, you can go for redressal in the form of compensation, etc. Those procedures are provided under the draft law as of now.
Thank you so much, sir.
Pleasure. You're on mute, I guess.
Sorry. Thank you, Shraddha. Thank you, Gajendra. Anyone else you have any question, you can just raise your hand and we will let you, ask your questions. You can write in the chat.
So Mr. Prasanna has asked another question. How is international data transfer covered in PDP bill? For international data transfer, first of all, one has to see what kind of data is being transferred. As we have seen, whether it's like normal personal data or sensitive or critical data. Depending on that, one has to decide whether it can be transferred or not transferred. Point number one. Then let's say it's not the data which is prohibited from being transferred. Then when you are sharing the data, as in the data collector or the data fiduciary is sharing the data, through the agreements, it will have to ensure that the data processor is also compliant with the law. This is also applicable in a way today. Let's say there is this EU data which I am getting hold of. I'm a BPO in India and I'm getting hold of EU-based airline. Okay, let's say Lufthansa. I'm processing some data of Lufthansa passengers in India. Now, through the agreements, I have to ensure that I also maintain the privacy levels which Lufthansa is required to maintain. So there are these binding clauses which you have to incorporate in the agreement. Those all things are going to be also implemented when we are going to have our own Data Protection Bill Act in India.
I think Prasanna has a question. Prasanna, you can unmute yourself if you can.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes. You.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks, Gajendra. It was an informative session. What I could understand was that PDP bill is similar to the GDPR in many respects. That's something welcome, because I've gone through the GDPR and it's quite exhaustive. It creates a lot of harmonization between data sharing and at the same time upholding the rights of the data subjects. So the advocacy is on how to harmonize rather than making it restrictive, because in today's fast changing world with the inventions of technologies, etc., all that, it is difficult to restrict any data, but the focus has been on the harmonization, which is really welcome. And in fact, had not gone through the PDP bill, and which you also have taken us through, and understand it is on the similar lines. Now, when it comes to data protection authorities or supervisory authorities, is there anything in the PDP bill which suggests that there should be something like European Protection Data Board, EPDB, or supervisory authorities and similar things like that? Is there anything mentioned in the bill? Yes. And then then if you look, and how, see, I read in the newspapers that Parliamentary Committee has recommended a lot of changes, and it looks like it is going to take little longer time rather than we expected it to pass through quickly. That's my take on that. Do you have any idea what are those kind of drastic changes recommended, or what is that large changes which they are going to come up with? If you have any idea on that. Otherwise,
yes. I'll quickly discuss. Yes, first of all, you're well read and well informed, Mr. Prasanna. You have rightly compared the Personal Data Protection Bill provision with GDPR. We always say that it is influenced by GDPR. GDPR is the mother code, so to say. So that is the one thing you have rightly pointed out. It's your correct observation. Next, yes, there is going to be a regulator like what we have ICO for UK. Similarly, there is going to be a regulator for this bill in India. All those parameters, who can be the member, etc., their service conditions, etc., broadly are, as they defined in the law, are also in place. So we will see this important regulatory body, independent body for the purpose of this bill. It is not going to be assigned to an existing body if we just try to understand it in more detail. Okay, so there is going to be an independent regulator for the purpose of privacy, created, formed under this law. That is next. Now, yes, JPC has given a lot of observation. And in addition to the comments under the bill, there are several other comments. One very important and distinguishing comment is that they want to say that don't just control the personal data, also regulate non-personal data. Now, non-personal data is something which is not yet even regulated in overseas jurisdiction. So we'll see how that part is managed and enacted. But that's what is, apart from the other recommendations, this is one very important and separate recommendation from the JPC. Let's see how it unfolds when the debate begins in the parliament, and how and to what extent the recommendations of the JPC are incorporated in the bill. But JPC did convene a lot of meetings. They also called for testification, a lot of stakeholders. All of that has happened in the past, but due to COVID situation, yes, there were restrictions in terms of convening meeting, etc. Let's see whether it's tabled for discussion in the monsoon session and it is taken up for enactment or not. We'll see. Or else, definitely to be considered, we are full in the winter session, if not in the monsoon session.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Gajendra, one more time. Any other questions from our participants? Yes, we have one question from Dr. Pratima here. Dr. Pratima is asking, would NGOs collecting information about their donors also fall within the definition of data principle? How stringent would be PHP for NGOs and people?
Okay, so as we have seen, this law is going to apply for everybody who collects the personal data. Okay. Now, it depends on what kind of personal data is being collected. For example, NGOs will collect when we are talking in the context of donation, they'll collect that this is the person who is giving the donation. This is the PAN number. Typically, it is a requirement under the income tax law that this is the PAN number, address, phone number, email IDs. When it relates to individuals, yes, NGO will have to monitor that this data of the donors, what they are collecting, it's retained by them. If they don't obtain consent, then NGOs, for example, they cannot pass it on to somebody that these are our donors, and another NGO, they pass it on these details. You can also ask them for donation. So that kind of exchange of information data, unless consented by the data subjects, is going to be prohibited. So we are trying to understand the whole law in the context of NGO. Yes, you can collect the data, but unless and until you get consent of transferring this data to somebody else, you will be compliant if you don't transfer and no consent is obtained.
Thank you, Gajendra, and thank you, Dr. Pratima. Yeah, she's our in-house faculty, and she's thanking you for this information. Thank you so much. Now we have another one. Tritesh. Tritesh, would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question, please? Over to you, Tritesh. I think some issue with thing. I think, Tritesh, and you're not able to write your question as well. Maybe you can write to us and we can forward your question to Mr. Gajendra here. Okay, so let us just, conclude this, and thank you, Gajendra, for the most informative and engaging workshop on data protection laws. The session was indeed very informative, and we all could understand the importance and enactment of this law. Thank you for bringing out the practical and legal dimensions of this upcoming law. I'm sure we have all been benefited in various spheres, whether we are a student or a professional. Thank you once again, Gajendra. It was wonderful to have you here, and we do look forward for a few more sessions with you. Thank you once again, and thank you all the participants. All our webinars are available on YouTube, and we have been doing a series of them, so do check them out. In case you are not subscribed to EBC Learning, I would say join us now today. And in case you have any queries or questions related to this webinar or any other queries related to EBC, do feel free to contact us. That's all for today, everyone. Hope you all had a great learning experience. Have a lovely evening. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank
Peace.
you, Gajendra,
Bye.
one more time. Thank you. Thank you, all the participants.